Hello everybody, I am live. Have I clicked absolutely everything I need to click? Well, we're 5 minutes early. There's enough time for the things to happen. As I've said before, it really is quite a tricky thing to do, and that is to, what are we doing here? Number 4, number 3, there we go. And we're going to have a live show any minute. Do I have audio? I do believe I have audio. Yes, I do. Ooh, good. It's working. Hello, everybody. As you can see from my, which button do I press here? Let me try that button. Let's try that button. There you go. I'm getting used to it. I'm getting better with this new setup that I've built here. I can do regular shows, and as a result, kind of create a format for my live shows, and I am now doing that. And now, because I am able to do this once a month, I'm going to make a regular four-wheel drive comedy, I'm not going to be funny, commentary slot. I'm going to comment on general four-wheel drive things that I think about four-wheel drive and adventure travel. I'm going to talk about some of the videos that I have released and the comments that I get from you folk coming back and telling me stuff. And I'm glad to say my Patreons have already sent me some fantastic questions that I'm going to address this morning. So each of these live shows, I'm going to wear a cap. Now, the reason for that is that if I run out of anything to say during my live show, I can talk about my cap. Okay, what do you reckon? Think that's a good idea? Contingency plan. I don't have a lot of caps, but my caps have history. I'll start with this. Now, we're actually 2 minutes before our scheduled time. This cap was given to me by Hubert Sneeman from Sneeman's Four-Wheel Drive in Cape Town in 2019 when I went there and we built, remember I bought a 105 Land Cruiser. It was sandy taupe color, and it turned out to be a mechanical basket case, and the guys sorted it out and actually built a very nice vehicle for me. And at the end they gave me a lovely t-shirt and they gave me this lovely cap. So this is the cap that I'm going to be wearing this morning during our show. So introduce the cap. I have had a very, very busy couple of months. Well, I'm a busy person, and released some videos that have been very controversial, and of course, most notable of which is the Land Rover Defender. I call it a catastrophe, and I'm going to get to that. I'm also going to talk about the video I released before that. My idea was to actually purchase a 2.8 auto gearbox 70 series troop carrier, and I'm going to talk about that decision because, having thought about it some more and spoken to it, I have driven that vehicle. Not that vehicle, I've driven that engine in a Hilux and a few other vehicles, and I'm trying to now mentally put that inside a 70 series, and I'm having a few second thoughts about whether that's going to be a good thing or not. So I'm going to get to that. And as it is now 10 o'clock, I'm going to start my official live show, and just a couple of announcements. I released a free course on overlandworkshop.com. That's overland-workshop.com. A free course, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Overlanders, and that's a free course. And it was actually, that offer was going to end on the 12th of September, but I have extended it a week because I wanted to give a last notice to you guys saying it's available now, but it will only be available until Wednesday this week, and then it will go in amongst the other 8 courses on the program, and will become one of those paid courses. At the moment, we've got eight, and I've also done a major upgrade to the course. Those of you on that have subscriptions to Overland Workshop, a major upgrade, about 6 new videos that I shot recently about vehicle choice, choosing a four-wheel drive. I've added a whole lot of stuff about large vehicles and performance vehicles and station wagons and utes and all the different, that each vehicle, they will all work for different applications. So the question is, what is your application and what vehicle suits? So it's not brand specific at all. I'm not interested in brands. It's vehicle type. And when I talk about old vehicles, a newer vehicle, okay, a lot more on that course, how to select a four-wheel drive for overland touring. So that's one of the courses, and if you're a subscriber to the Overland Workshop, just go in there now and you'll find those extra videos have been added to that course. I wanted to mention that. 1st of October, Gwyn's course is finished. We finished it last week. It's taken about 7 months to put together. It's amazing, actually. And it goes on the Overland Workshop. Those of you with subscriptions will get it for free. It will also be available as a separate course, and it is basically it's called Building and Stocking a 365-day Nomad's Pantry. And the idea is this: when we go on expeditions, we don't, for example, take tomatoes, but we eat a lot of tomatoes. How does that work? Well, we dehydrate them. And a dehydrated tomato, for some reason, the flavor is heightened once you dehydrate. It's almost concentrated. So you then rehydrate it and use it in anything that you would have a tomato. But instead of, normally a tomato, even in a fridge on a rough road, tomatoes get bruised very, very easily. And after 3 or 4 days on the track, they're often all sludgy and horrible. Not this way. And of course, they weigh 1/10, even less, because a tomato, of course, is mostly water. Well, what about other things like potatoes and etc., etc.? This course is about that incredible efficiency in saving weight and saving space when doing long overland trips and eating brilliantly, and also saving a lot of time around the camp. So around the camp, when you're doing your cooking around the camp, you're doing the fun part of cooking. The fun part of cooking is the fire and all of the things that go with that. And the chopping vegetables and that kind of thing, far, far less. So that's coming out it'll be available on the Overland Workshop on the 1st of October. That's been enormous fun to make that course, actually. It's a collaboration between Gwyn and myself, but Gwyn is presenting it. And that course, actually, the development of that course has actually given us some other ideas for some other projects, which we'll talk about to come. But Gwyn has so much to teach in terms of this kind of thing. So much to teach. So lots of exciting things coming up. The South Africa build, I saw the video. So I have an apology. I have an apology to make to people following the channel. They're basically saying, and there's not a lot of complaints, but I understand them. They're basically saying, we never know what you're doing when, and it's very inconsistent. So I apologize for that, because you're right. For example, I did one video about my solo Australian trip and then did nothing for 4 weeks. And they're thinking, well, where's the consistency? We want to see the rest of it. So 2 things. I do correct that and adjust that. So I put up the entire series on my video on demand platform. I don't charge a lot for it. Video on demand, hosting on video on demand, high quality videos is very expensive. So I have to charge something. I can't do it as a free service. Okay, I can't. I must cover my costs for that. But you can go in, see an advanced copy, and see the entire series and binge watch the entire series. And I think the solo series is $6. I think it's 6 Australian dollars. So it's not a lot. But you're right. Those of you who don't want to spend the money and can't, I will release the videos. But what I will do is I will try and be a little bit more consistent. So last week, Wednesday, it was the episode 1 of the actual trip itself, and I will roll out the other 4. 1 week, every Wednesday. I will do that. After that, I've got 2 US trip videos that Gwyn and I shot in the US. We were there in April. Is it April? April, May? We were in the US. They're not 4-wheel driving trips. They're road trips. They're very funny. We did an overland boating trip, which was So good, so much fun. So it's a different twist on what I do, and if you like watching Gwen and I travel, you need to see that series. So if you go into the playlist now on YouTube, and you'll find there's one in Hawaii, there's one in Florida, and there's one in Canada. There are those 3, and there are 2 more to come in that series. And it's just Gwen and I doing road trip travel, and it's funny and amusing and entertaining, and they were also kind of released one and then a gap and then one. So I'm going to try and keep things a little neater and a little easier to follow. Those videos come out every Wednesday. And of course, the Next Journey podcast comes out every Sunday. On the 3rd Sunday of every month, I do a live show, either the 2nd or 3rd Sunday of the month. It depends on my schedule. It's difficult for me to be in the studio regularly every single 3rd Sunday, but 3rd Sunday is my aim. All right. What else? So the South Africa build, we will then, after those 2 US trip videos coming out, we will then continue with 3 videos on the trot. The color reveal, I've seen what the Land Cruiser looks like in its new color. No spoilers, apart from the fact that it is drop dead gorgeous. I'm so glad I made that choice. I know it would have been good with the other one too. I know it would have been good with both of them, but it looks so good. Very, very, and they did a brilliant job. And Paul is running that. So now what Paul is doing now in Cape Town is it's a very, very busy 2 months. The paint spray job was actually given to the spray guys, and they said, look, we will do it. We will contribute it to the channel, but we need the car for 6 months, because we will do it during our off time. So as soon as their workers are busy, and somebody, it's a bit of a slow time, okay, go and work on that. And they have done what Paul has told me. It's so good. They did a superb job. So very, very pleased with that. And it's taken 6 months, and we've just taken delivery of it now. We're having now an under chassis rust treatment done, also in Cape Town. That's happening. That has just happened. I haven't seen the footage of that yet. And then the vehicle goes for its interior fitting. And there's some very interesting products. The South African Bull Bar, GoBX is doing that. I've used their products before on several vehicles. I've gone back to them because they're first class, really nice. Excuse me. The Bull Bar by a company called Onka, and also the wheel flares. They make a very, very nice, and it's also a airbag compatible Bull Bar on the front. I'm not fitting a winch. You've got to keep this vehicle light because of the low power of the engine. Exciting stuff happening, and Paul keeps sending me footage and images of the work that they're doing. I have a shout out, please. Anybody who knows Chad from Living the Van Life. I tell you what. See, I've been trying to contact him. He came to visit me and sat with me for an hour or so at Overland Expo West in May in the States. And we had a long chat, and I have been trying to reach him, and I've sent him emails through his contact page on his website, and I've been commenting on his videos, and I've probably been trying to do that now for well over a month, and he refuses to respond. I'm assuming he's not receiving them. So would you mind going on to his latest video and says, just right there say on his latest video, hey, Andrew's trying to reach you. Because I've posted a comment on his latest video saying, I'm trying to reach you, because I want to interview him for the podcast. I think he'd be a really, really good person to, because he's driven vans, and he's driven 2-wheel drive vans and 4-wheel drive vans, and he's got the latest Sprinter, which looks very nice. And because it looks very nice, I have to question, well, is it very nice? And what are its limitations? I want to know a little bit more about that vehicle. Having not driven one, I'd like to know more. So, Chad, if you're watching, please make contact with me so we can organize that. All right, I'm going to go straight for now. Thank you very much for all of those people. I love seeing lots of people. Hello from New Zealand. DRC. That's unusual, from DRC. Hello. Where else? New Zealand, New Zealand, New Zealand, USA. Good night in the USA. Lots. I love people when they come and they say, Mexico. Ha ha. New Zealand, New Zealanders. Okay. Hello from Joondalup. So you're around the corner from me. Okay. Panama. Wilmington, NC. Wilmington, NC. NC. I'm being stupid here. NC. If it was BC, it would be British Columbia. NC. It's not Northern Territory. That would be NT. Where's NC from? Wilmington. Mandurah. You're not far from me. UAE. Hello. North Carolina. Cannington. You're not far from me. Washington State. USA. Hello. It's great fun. I love all these people all over the world. So good to have you watching. Now I'm going to get straight to my Patreons. I let them know that I was going to go live, and I said, please send me some questions. So, and Cameron Amatic, you asked me some questions last time, and I think I missed them, but I'm going to get to your questions, and they're really good questions. There are quite a few. Before you, Brian asked, when the new Troopy comes out, will you fit the flat pack interior that you are designing? Yes, if you remember very briefly, with my current troop carrier, I couldn't do the flat pack. I won't go into the details now, they're not important at this moment, but I didn't fulfill my promise enabling people to actually order a flat pack. I don't sell the flat pack, I don't make the flat pack, I'm not in that business, I don't make a cent from this, okay? It's not my business. What I do is I am consulting with the people that are actually building it, a different set of people, and you're going to be able to see that on my channel actually very, very soon. So yes, the answer is yes, and it's something. And it probably won't be a flat pack. There are pitfalls with flat packs. It will be, and honestly, it's weight and volume when shipping. It's going to cost a little bit more to ship, but honestly, you're still going to be putting it together yourself. It's still DIY, and this system, you can also say, please install the following electrical installation in there. And all you do is you put it into your car and you just run cables from your lights, from your fridge, from whatever, you just run cables. And it's all done for you. So that is coming quite soon. All right, how is the grandfather experience so far? I am very lucky. These are questions from Cameron Amatic. I am very fortunate in that I have my 3 daughters all living within 20 minutes of where I live. And we see them, all of them, every week. So now, in an hour and a half's time, they are all going to arrive at my home here in Perth, in Western Australia, because it was my birthday the other day. And happy birthday, Andrew. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. I'm just doing it in advance because I know you're going to send me the happy birthday wishes. And they're all coming for a nice Sunday lunch. The grandfather experience has been fantastic, and it hasn't made me feel older. It's made me feel kind of more privileged. I got 2 fantastic little humans. They're just both of them brilliant. So I'm very lucky. I just feel lucky. Misconceptions about travel in Africa. Things that are perceived to be safe that are dangerous, and vice versa. Things that are perceived to be safe. That's a difficult one because it depends where you go. I think that people think that wild animals are a big danger in Africa. It's like people saying, oh, snakes, terrible, don't go to Australia, it's the most dangerous place in the world because of all those snakes. Well, yeah, there are some very venomous snakes here, but if you actually are smart, they're not actually dangerous at all, and it's really, really bad luck if you get bitten, or stupidity. Stupidity, picking one up, okay? Bad luck, well, it's bad luck. But generally speaking, I have seen more snakes when traveling in the US, in North America, than I have traveling in Australia. Can you believe it? Not venomous snakes, because none of the snakes I've seen in North America are venomous, but the ones I've seen in Australia are. And some are quite aggressive. But most snakes, honestly, in most snakes, if you just move very slowly, if you see a snake, move very slowly, move away from the snake, do it slowly so it doesn't perceive a threat, because it will attack anything that moves fast. It sees it as a threat, will attack. Snakes are more dangerous in Africa because some of the very aggressive snakes in Africa are even more venomous than those in Australia. And I know some of you are saying, oh, the taipan is the most venomous snake. Yes. Well, How many people die from taipan bites? Almost none. How many people die from black mamba bites? Yeah, more than none. So actually, snakes in Africa concern me more, but it's the same story. I've been within 6 inches of an enormous black mamba, and I froze. I just sat there. I was very young at the time. I was probably 15 years old, 16 years old, and I saw it next to me. I was fishing next to a river, and I saw it next to me. And I thought, what's that? And then, just stay still. Just stay still. Don't, just stay dead still. And it just moved off. It moved off. See? Oh, then I got up. and its girth was like this. And a mamba is a long, thin snake. So a long, thin snake with a girth like this. It's a deadly creature. But that's the closest I've ever come. But I've had a couple of aggressive snakes encounters, but all in Africa. But again, move out the way. Nice and slowly, just move out the way. Let the snake do what it's, I also learned now to keep my car doors closed. I'm very bad with that, and I'm better at it now because of the snake threat. Okay. Does Iceland appeal to you? Very, very much. It's a bit overdone, but I don't care because it's so beautiful as an overlanding destination. But then again, you could always say the same about Australia. It's overdone. Okay. What business advice did you give to your daughters? I didn't give them any business advice at all to my daughters. They all have their own businesses and they're all very, very successful. I didn't need to give them advice. They were born into a family of entrepreneurs, and I had my own business. Gwen and I had our own business, and Gwen had another business, side business, which was her own business. We were entrepreneurs, and they just saw entrepreneurs. That's who they saw. And so they just became entrepreneurs themselves. It was a natural thing. Do we give them advice? Sure, we give them advice about cash flows and that kind of stuff, but they now consult for us. Now, both Kate and Stephanie now both now are consultants to my business, and they actually perform our social media work. This is not a a nepotism thing. This is they provide these services, and Stephanie, for example, grew my Instagram from 12,000 to 75,000 in 1 year. So, and I couldn't have done that on my own. So they are part of our, but we're a very, very small percentage of their income. Very, very small percentage of their income. And we have work days here. They'll come over. We'll spend a day. We'll work together, and we'll. It's very healthy, and it's fun. It's just plain fun as well. If you were building a truck and no Toyotas were available, what would you build? I would almost certainly build an Ineos Grenadier. Interesting. What would I do with the back and the sleeping arrangement? I know that's a bit of a few shortcomings with that vehicle, but every vehicle has shortcomings in terms of turning it into a bed in the back. But I'd build a Grenadier. I probably would. It's it's got a lot of shortcomings in terms of an Overlander. Range, where do you put the fuel tank? I know, but it's really, really interesting, and it's got a solid front axle, and I think it could be turned into a really, really great Overlander. If that wasn't available, what would I do? That's a difficult one. I wouldn't necessarily buy a Toyota anyway. Would I buy a Hilux if I was going to buy a Ute? Would I buy a Hilux? Yeah, maybe. Not necessarily. It's not the Toyota brand that I'm in love with. It's the 70 series, but particularly the Troop Carrier, and because of its van configuration. So it's difficult to say. And if I was in the US, what would I do in the US? I saw a conversion done to a Land Cruiser 200, which in the US has the big 5.8, is it, liter V8? It just guzzles fuel, that thing. But it had a built-in camper conversion. And I think that vehicle is now at the Land Cruiser Museum in Salt Lake City. I saw it there. And so the guy who developed it, I think, owns the museum, and he's got, a great deal of spare cash, would be my guess, I'm guessing. But that was not a cheap. But when I saw it, I thought, wow, fantastic comfort, and you've got a camper in the back. So here's the thing about the US. If you're going to build an Overlander in the VUS, you have to be able to live inside it, because the weather changes so quickly, so rapidly, and it varies so much through the year and through the continental United States, that if you have to pitch a tent and do all of this very complicated stuff. Excuse me.
I just had a message from Bob, who's
Yes.
in Florida,
Yes.
saying your volume's too low.
Volume's too low.
Sorry to interrupt, guys.
No, thank you. I will turn up my gain. My volume is too low. Let me know if my volume is too low, guys. If anybody says to my volume is too low, will you let me know? It is maybe a little too low. Let me just make a little adjustment here. I can turn up my gain a little bit. How's that? Is that a bit better? That should be a little better. I'm hoping it's a little better. Okay. Thank you, Bob, for that. If you want to travel the United States, you have to be able to handle the weather. And to handle the weather without a mammoth mission of pitching a complicated structure to protect yourself against the weather, then you need a van of some kind of live-in, so I can quickly pitch it and climb inside. And the same thing happened with our road trip this May. The road trip was so much fun, but there were one or two times where it was freezing cold, and it wasn't winter, and we climbed into the back of the camper and we're comfortable. So whatever you do, as far as I'm concerned, you need something to escape from the weather. I believe that to be the truth. Brand is not really the issue there. What is the wait from the time for the new troopy? More Patreon questions. New chat miles? I don't know. Still haven't been told. I have been told that I will be told as soon as they have an idea. I have heard that they're doing a different factory line for the 2.8 and the V8s. Do you have any film cameras for photography, and do you ever use them? Elliot, I use the Sony A7S III as my primary film camera, the A7 III as my secondary film camera. They are both very good still cameras. They are actually still cameras adapted for video, not the other way around. You take a video camera and you shoot stills with it. The stills are never particularly good. These cameras, they're still cameras, shooting amazing video. So they do both very, very well. They're not actually a compromise. They're a little bit of a compromise ergonomically with a still camera and a video camera. There's a different ergonomic feel to them. So these cameras do have a bit of a sacrifice in terms of ergonomics, but in terms of image quality, none. Still images are as good as you will get with any camera. Video quality, as good as you will get with any camera, up to the point where you're going to proper cinema cameras and cinema lenses, which are 5 times the price and not 5 times better quality, just slightly better quality. So I hope that gives you a little bit of insight. In New Zealand, I'm disappointed that we're not going to be able to buy a manual Land Cruiser 70 series anymore. Look, it's the way, to be honest with you, I'm going to get to that in a minute, about this 2.8 Land Cruiser. So I'm going to wait for that to answer that question when I get to that. So people are saying, turn up your volume, can't hear you. I don't actually know what to do here. Is my volume still low, guys? Much better, Robert said, much better. Okay, Rob, thank you for that insight, guys. I do appreciate that. Right. This is going to be fun. It's going to cause a lot of SH1T. I have received, so Land, we're going to do the Land Rover Defender story, and then we're going to do the 2.8 Land Cruiser story. All right. Okay. The reason why I presented the video saying that the Land Rover Defender was a catastrophic failure when it came to an adventure vehicle is because of the reasons I presented. And that's the reason why I did it. People are buying it for adventure, And I'm saying this is high risk, and these are the risks. And I categorically said in the video, it is completely unsuitable for adventure travel. And then I moderated myself, and they're saying, well, actually not really. And it is suitable because, well, all you've actually got to do is adapt your toolbox. You need a laptop and a bus so you can connect to it and learn how to do it so you can correct any issues. Guess what? That is not true. I was absolutely correct. You do not just need a laptop and a bus. You also need an internet connection. Otherwise, you can't get into the car. I have received, what I did actually is I posted, to keep this balanced, I pinned a comment from a YouTuber. And if you go into that comment, I'm going to see if I can quickly do it here myself. I basically said that my idea was that, I'm going to quickly do this and try and speak to you while I do this. My idea was that I wanted to present the other side of that argument. And I wanted a YouTuber to do that. And so this person, I'm going to go into it now. I pinned it. Brandon was obviously a Defender owner, and he was coming through with some positive. So I pinned it at the top so that you would get a balance. And here is an owner. So I've now got this guy, Brandon, posted this, and I've also had 2 messages via my contact page saying, we are owners and this is what we think. So this now is from the point of view of Defender owners. And I'm hoping to be able to balance it. I'm not going to read the entire thing, but basically, Brendan says, I have a 2022 Defender on 34-inch tires, kitted out for overland, and I'm in it constantly. I camp, hit some fairly rough trails, thousands of miles on the highway, haven't had any issues, not even a warning light in the last 2 years. Fantastic. You see, when it works, it's brilliant, and that's what I've said. When it works, it is brilliant. The ride's brilliant, the payload's good, etc., etc. That's what I've said. When it works, it's brilliant. Okay? And it's a long email. And he's saying, Jeeps and Toyotas, they're decent off-roaders, they're ugly, awful on gas mileage, da-da-da. He's not wrong. So it's a good opinion. Read it. Okay? And it's generally very positive. But I honestly think that the reason why I pinned it also is that I don't believe Brandon is just a brand loyalist who's blind to the... Okay? He's a user and a practical user, and he's saying good things. And he likes the vehicle, not because it's a Land Rover, because he prefers it to many others, and it's serving him well. Fantastic. All right. So, I have received 2 emails from... I'm going to read this one to you. Okay, this is somebody who I don't know him well, but I know he's in the industry. He's mad about Land Rovers, just besotted with Land Rovers, and has just owned almost every single one. And he has a motor relating business, and he's very switched on, and he knows what he's talking about. I respect his opinion, okay, because his background is in it. Okay. He says this, you mentioned in your video about towing one. All right. Let me skip a little earlier. He said, we had the first edition 110 with a 4-cylinder engine, 35,000 miles, and it sucked and pumped engine oil from the intercooler and pumped it in from the engine oil into the intercooler. No warning until it stopped, and of course it wouldn't start. Repair bill under warranty though, but was £22,000. Repair bill. So it basically cooked the engine. This fault is also common to Discovery 5. You mentioned in your video about towing one. A friend broke down last week in his 2-month-old with 2,000 miles on it. One of the batteries died even though he was driving it. Problem is, even with the LR Tech and a laptop, they couldn't get it going. And as you said, it became a paperweight. What even the LR Tech didn't know is on the latest version, you can't tow it at all. With the car in paperweight mode, it's impossible to select neutral or release the handbrake. So they had to put it onto a flatbed with a winch, cutting both front tyres in the process. No idea what would you do if you were in the outback? Leave it and get a lift home, was his suggestion. The other interesting one, as we're hearing, is that the deployable tow bars. Deployable tow bar. Now, you overland vehicle, and you've got a complicated, a tow bar. A tow bar is a piece of metal that needs to be strong. No, not Land Rover Defender, it's deployable. Now, I understand why you might want to deploy it, because it can retract and then not hit the ground when you're going off-road. Nice idea, no good for adventure, because it's too complicated. A friend had been stuck for a week with his caravan, stowed the tow bar, but it refused to deploy when he was wanting to go home, and the car was 2 days in the dealers. He had to borrow a tow car to get to his caravan. I have a new 110, my wife has a 90, and we love them. But no way would we keep them out of warranty, and any adventuring will be done in our faithful TD5. I was right. And a lot of you Land Rover guys are giving me a hard time about this, but I'm just the messenger. I'm just letting you know what you're buying. When it works, it's a fabulous vehicle. I look at that and think to myself, Land Rover has always been at the forefront of automotive technical development. They have since the day I have known that, been part of that business. Look at the first Range Rover and how much of a leap it was forward. The early traction control systems, which really didn't work well, but now their traction system is as good as anything on the market. Why is that? Because they push the boundaries, and they pay the price for pushing the boundaries. I thought the Land Rover Discovery 2, when they removed the center differential lock, was awful off-road. It was absolutely terrible. It used to tear holes in the ground before the traction control would engage, and I hated it, and for that reason I was blacklisted by Land Rover. And then they put it back, and I had a sponsored Land Rover LR4, and I loved that car. Overly complicated, but nothing when it comes to compare to the complication of the new Defender. So while Land Rover is now pushing the boundaries of technology, they've got the technology, but they're just saying, there's some technology, we should use it, and as opposed to saying, there's some technology, should we use it? Well, the people making the decision of should they use the technology don't go camping. They don't go on adventures, because if they did, they would say, deployable tow bar. Really? Okay, yeah, sounds good. In practical terms, what happens if it fails? You can't tow no. And this, I can't control my vehicle unless I've got internet. If I have a minor electrical fault, I am absolutely stranded. I have to have internet. So, the extra toolkit for you guys with Defenders that want to go on adventure, you've got another piece of toolkit to add to your toolbox. Remember, you've got the bus, you've got the laptop, you've got the know-how, and you've got Starlink. Okay, you need an internet connection. So, you still can go. New toolbox. I can't look at it any other way. I just can't. I just absolutely cannot. And hey, you're talking about a Land Rover product here. They don't have a they don't have a reputation for reliability. But it would be the same with any car. If you're dependent upon that kind of technology, then mitigate your risks. What are your risks if you're going overlanding? find out what those risks are, and mitigate them. With a Defender, those are the risks, mitigate them. Get a Starlink. You might need it. Hopefully you won't. We take a first aid kit in our cars. We hope we never need them. We take them. Now you've got to do something else with that. Right, let's have a look and see if there are any more Patreon questions, and then I will get on to you very nice people all over the world asking your questions, which I think we can do now. Super Chat, if you want to make sure your question is answered, the Super Chat is available right now. So if you'd like to make a contribution to the channel, you are very, very welcome. Okay. Let me see. Send your questions to me now, guys. Have you ever thought about overlanding in northern China, Mongolia? Yes, I have. And here's my challenge. To go overlanding in any of these countries, I need a suitable vehicle. I've been offered, 3 different people have offered me the Ineos Grenadier to travel in North America. The trouble is with the Ineos Grenadier is that it doesn't fulfill that thing that I mentioned earlier about the handling bad weather. It doesn't. It's just a station wagon. It's just a 4-wheel drive station wagon. I could do the same trip in North America in a 4Runner. What's the difference? There's no difference. The kind of traveling I do, 4Runner will do it with ease. Why Ineos Grenadier? It's interesting. No other reason. So I would need somebody to come up with a vehicle suitable for traveling in China, Mongolia, and what would that vehicle be? Well, I don't know enough about traveling in that part of the world to know what kind of range I will need, for example. Where do I land? Where do I take? Where do I fetch the vehicle? Where do I leave it? I don't know now. I've watched Mongolia content and some TV shows that were shot there, and it just looks amazing. It's my kind of place, really my kind of place. And apparently the 4-wheel drive industry in Mongolia is really quite vigorous. If I had the money, I could ship my trippy there. Yes, if I had the money. I make more money sitting here talking to you at home, about to have a nice lunch with my family, than I do. Obviously, that's not what I want to do. I want to go expedition traveling. So it's not about money. But it is about money, because it would cost me a great deal of money to get a vehicle, do Mongolia, and present the shows. Hello, Patreon. That's why I can do it. Okay? Plug for Patreon. I know some of you don't like me plugging these things, but they enable me to build the Africa Build. The Africa Build is being built, was purchased and is being built as a direct result of supporters of the channel, financial supporters, not YouTube ads. Okay, so that's the thing. Would I go to Mongolia tomorrow? Iceland too. Okay, volume's good. That's brilliant. I must actually, after this, I'm going to mark my settings with some little pencils. Okay. Hello, John. John is building a troop carrier in the US, and I have been consulting with him, and he's actually taking one of these interiors that I'm building. It's actually going to be, I'm getting the prototype, which we're hoping to fit in October. Okay, it's scheduled for October. I've had to wait for my water tanks, which are coming from South Africa. Why South Africa? You need to see these water tanks. They have done something so different, and honestly, when I saw it when I was there, I'm having it fitted to my Africa Troopy, and I'm modifying my Australia Troopy for those water tanks. They're that good. It's just carrying water, but no, water management. Wow. So cool. Very, very cool. Really looking forward to getting my hands on the actual product and fitting it myself. More. Okay. Starting to clip, which means I'm slightly high. The audio. Dear. So now I can turn down very slightly. There you go. Right. Salt Lake City, Utah. I was there not very long ago. I went to the the military museum, the aerospace museum at McDonnell Douglas. It's the one on the highway north of Salt Lake. I was there. I did go to the Land Cruiser. I keep saying Land Rover. I've got Land Rover on my brain. Land Cruiser Museum there. I decided not to do a video about it. There are plenty of videos about it. Nice museum. Very, very nice museum. Enjoyed myself. Okay, you can explain to people why having a simple reader to clear codes will not. You're absolutely right. So he's basically saying a scan gauge, which you get scan codes and you can say, okay, this is wrong. That's not enough. You can clear the code, but if the fault is still there, it doesn't necessarily solve the problem. You have to fix it. But at least you know what the problem is. You have some way to start. And if you do get a part or have a part and refit the part, you can set the computer to say to the car, we're okay now, we can continue going. The old-fashioned way is fix it, start the motor. The new way is go online and try and figure it out so the motor will start. The new way. So Joe, thank you very much for that. A lot of codes require dealer-only hardware. You are absolutely right. I'm not presenting. You're absolutely right. I'm not presenting the final solution. I'm saying the bare minimum. This is the bare minimum. If you have internet connection, you could then say, phone a Land Rover dealer and say, I've got this, I've got the connection, I've got the thing, I've got the code, this is the thing, I've replaced the part. Can you help me? It might take a few days, but at least you can do something. Otherwise, you're buggered. It's a paperweight. So, yeah, OBD2 is capable of reading and clearing basic codes. I'm not a programmer. I don't know too much about it. So I do. You love the interview with John Cadogan. Thank you. Thank you very much. John's a funny guy. Very, very funny guy. So he's talking about the Next Journey podcast. You want to go on to Spotify and Apple. Well, actually, where all big podcasts are broadcast. It's a hashtag ASPW. The Next Journey is my latest podcast, and we're on episode 3 at the moment. We're doing very nicely on the charts, and I've just interviewed John Cadogan, talking about the health of the motoring press. And the fact is, where do you find an honest review of a car? I mean, honestly, where do you find an honest review of a car? And he explained why it is so difficult. And Rubo, welcome. You finally caught me live. Thank you for your contribution. Yeah, we have communicated on a number of subjects. I even bring up, and I brought it up, our altercation is the wrong word. It was a very, very positive experience when I suggested that our intercooler intakes the wrong way round, and I presented this idea and I posed a question. You know, we just take things for granted instead of asking questions. And I asked a question. And was it a silly question? Some people thought it was an extremely silly question. John didn't think it was a silly question. Well, he did eventually. It was good, positive stuff. And I brought it up during our interview, and we had a chat about it. He's right. I mean, his conclusion was right, and I'm kind of convinced, yes, but it was still worth asking the question. This is my thing. Let's ask questions. Let's not take things for granted. Let's not take forward-drive things for granted. All right. On a very hot camping day, can you spend the night with your wife inside the troopy while the engine is running and the aircon is on? No, I can't do that. I've got a fan. The tent is extremely airy. I have a fan that I can plug in, and I don't have an air conditioning system. I could get a small evaporative air conditioning system, which would kind of work in that tent and that closed and tent environment, because you've got mosquito netting around you. It's open, you've got mosquito netting, fan, and it would kind of work. I definitely wouldn't want to run the engine. No, that would be horrible, I think. And there was a time actually where which troopy was it? It was my previous green one. I think I was there for a day. It was like 44 degrees. I can't remember where I was. And I actually did idle the engine for about an hour, and I had the aircon. I just needed it to cool down. And then I actually set up my shower system, and every 15 minutes I would just walk under it and just turn it on and just douse myself with cold water. That's what I did. But I've never had a situation at night where it's been unbearable. I don't think I have, actually. During the day, there's been a few times where it's been really, really hot and not particularly pleasant. All right. Last one before I get onto the 2.8 Land Cruiser story. Andrew, with all your travel trips in Africa, did you ever go North Africa, Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Egypt? No, but it is on my list, and it is at the top of my bucket list. So, Pete's Overland Adventures. I am planning a trip to the Empty Quarter with Paul Marsh, and we have earmarked it for early 25. January 25. That's where we've earmarked it. So I can tell you what I'm going to be doing in 24. I plan my trips 1 year-ish in advance. So right now I have my... I'm planning a trip to Tasmania, but there's a story that I'm going to break quite soon about restrictions on YouTubers going to Tasmania. Okay, and if those restrictions... I'm going to do a story about the restrictions. So we had the idea of doing Tasmania in February. Okay. May, Gun and I are going to Africa. I'm going to be doing a solo trip through part of the Southern Kalahari, Lion Country, solo. And then I'm meeting Gwyn, and then we will do Zambia and northern Namibia. Our story is, I lost my wedding ring in Lake Malawi. I want to go and try and find it. The chances of finding it are probably less than zero, but I'm going to go and look anyway because it'll make a nice story. And I'm actually going to have another one actually made in Malawi in case I don't find it, but I will actually have it made ahead of time probably. But anyway, because the chance of finding it. And it came off my finger while I was snorkeling in Lake Malawi. Okay, and then we were going to go back to a place that we had our honeymoon, and we're going to tell that story. It's a pretty amazing story, and we actually want to go travel. And we're, of course, going to do that in the new troop carrier. That's going to be May. July in Australia, I don't know what I'm going to be doing in Australia because I'm not going to give you the reasons why. I don't know at this moment, but it'll be something big in Australia, and it'll be in July. And in November, we're planning a trip to Bali, Indonesia, and that'll be also a four-wheel drive road trip through Bali, and that's November, so a little more than a year from now. And then January 25, Paul and I are talking about, and we haven't done that much research at the moment about getting a vehicle in for the Empty Quarter in Northern Africa, but that is our plan. So now you know, that's what I'm doing. Right. Are we ready to talk about the Land Cruiser 2.8? I think what's probably important is that we actually have a look at these. So let's have a look at the design first. Can you see that there? Can you see my... I've got a mouse here. That's my mouse. Where is it now? No, there it is. There it goes. I'm looking at this on a tiny little screen. Okay, there it is there. All right, can you see there? Look at those headlights on the red one. Look at the headlights. There's a YouTuber that actually commented and said it looked like it'd come out of... They'd bought it from Alibaba on eBay. He's not wrong, actually. They look a bit silly. But if you look at the other one, the Sandy Taup vehicle here, it has the standard headlamps. So the great part about the 70 series is that somebody will come up with a modification for those headlights if they are hideous. So it's not something that is affecting the entire experience of the vehicle. What might affect the entire experience of the vehicle is have another look now at the location of the indicators. How are they going to build a bull bar around the indicators? How are they going to do that? The bull bar is going to be in front of the indicators, which means that the indicators will have to be built into the bull bar. they actually have to incorporate it into the bull bar. That's the only solution there, because look how they stick out, and they're very nice, and they're very retro and everything like that, and it looks quite nice. But that's a bit of a challenge for the bull bar makers, but I know that they'll come up with a solution. So the other part about this vehicle is that the 2.8 engine, now, as an off-roader, the V8's better. Come on, the V8 is better. It just is. They produce a similar amount of power and torque. There's not a big difference. But the V8 is so undertuned that by a little bit of tweaking, you can get it to perform brilliantly. I mean, really, as I've said, with a little bit of tweaking, not pumping and getting the engine to produce massive power and shooting the exhaust gas temperatures through the roof, and so turbos pop and damage the engine. No, you don't need to do that. You just need to tweak it a little bit, and you get this amazing power. All right, I've got a Torque-It, the Torque-It map, module map they call it, and I've got it on cruise setting. And I've got an EGT. So the way for me to test it was, you're going to do this modification. You've heard good things. Fine. That's not enough for me. I want to know what my exhaust gas temperature is doing. And I have looked at my exhaust gas temperature under high acceleration. I've got it on my scan gauge. High acceleration, high power, and it stays it's cool. That's the big question. If you overfuel and you get that wrong, you overfuel, the exhaust gas temperatures go through the roof, and therefore then immediately after that exhaust obviously is the turbocharger, and that gets too hot and it burns holes in the wastegate, etc., and cooks the engine and damages the turbo. That's not happening. And so it's a little tweak, and it's made a massive difference. That is not going to be the case with the 2.8. Yes, a little bit of tweaking will get a little bit more out of that engine, but you tweak, you can say goodbye to your engine warranty. So I've just said goodbye to my engine warranty right now by letting you know that I have done this. Goodbye engine warranty. And I'm actually going to do a podcast with John Cadogan about this subject. Accessories and engine warranties. And we all talk about what is reasonable and what is not, and some of it's quite obvious. But if you tweak the engine something like this and something goes wrong with the engine, the manufacturer of that engine has every right to say, I'm sorry mate, you modified the engine with something that wasn't approved. And that's not being unreasonable, that's being reasonable. So 2.8, to tweak it, I'll get a little bit more performance out of it. It's a 4-cylinder. Actually it's got more torque than the V8 in the V8 standard form. Okay. Which is actually quite a lot. But what RPM range does it come? Big V8s produce their power and torque at low RPM, which is what you want off-road. The 2.8 4-cylinder doesn't do that. It produces it at much higher RPM. That very fact means it's not going to be as good off-road. It'll be good off-road, but it won't be as good off-road. I like it because of the automatic gearbox. I would have actually been happier, I think, if they had said V8 automatic gearbox. I would have been over the moon. So imagine if they had said there's a choice. Auto gearbox with either the 2.8. I might have gone for the 2.8 purely because of an interest factor, and this is my business, to create content and share with you what I think about things. But I can tell you now, it's not going to be as good off-road. On-road, it's going to be similar. And I'm talking about an untuned, untouched, standard factory V8. It will be similar. It will have similar overtaking power. It will have similar hill climbing power. Maybe not quite as good, but it's not going to be bad to the point of, oh, this is awful. It's not. The motor's got a lot of power, and it performs well. Good, reliable engine. It's been around for quite a while. It's Toyota's standard de facto, default engine. They put it in almost everything. So it has a lot of R&D. It's been around for a long time, so it's a good engine. So it'll do the job fine. Once that troopy gets heavy, I wonder how well it'll perform, because again, I'm imagining that the engine is probably, and here's a guess, and the first thing I'm going to do when I get it, the first thing I'm going to do, like I did with my last V8 troop carrier, I'm going to go and have it weighed so I can see where I'm working and how much lighter is it going to be. I haven't seen the specs of the car yet. How lighter is it, in fact, than a V8? My guess is 60 kilograms less. I might be pushing it a bit. Let's say 60. That's my guess. It might be 12. I don't know. It's got a bit more, because of course you're talking about a different gearbox as well. So that automatic gearbox is probably heavier than the manual gearbox, my guess. So it might be no weight saving at all. So maybe 60 kilograms is wishful thinking. But I won't do a GVM upgrade. I didn't do on my current troop carrier because I didn't need it, because I wanted to keep it light. Now, keeping it light is even more important, because you don't have that excess in performance that you have with a V8. So this is what worries me the most, to be honest with you, is the automatic gearbox. How well tuned is it going to be? Is it going to be going, you go up a long hill that's got a bit of a climb, you're maintaining 110, and it's going from 6-speed, 6 to 5th, to 6 to 5th, 4th, 5th, 6th. Now, automatic boxes, some of them badly tuned do that, drive you bonkers. I don't think that's going to be the case, but I suppose that's the biggest thing that worries me, because that can make driving actually quite unpleasant. I am taking a risk. I am going to get one. I am going to build it. I've told you I would do it, and I'm going to be the guinea pig here. Look, I'll still love it because it's a troopy. I've got my Africa troopy is a 1HZ, which is those 1HZ engines are so underpowered. But you drive them off-road, and I say off-road, if you drive them over gnarly, lumpy stuff, the 1HZ is brilliant. It's got bags and bags of torque at 1 RPM. Okay, and so you can idle the motor like you can with the V8. The V8 has the stall device on first and second gear low range. You can crawl that car so slowly over gnarly stuff. It's brilliant. Will the 2.8 have the same? Maybe. Hope so. 1HZ doesn't have that, but even with that underpowered 1HZ, that dog of an engine at 1HZ, it's reliable, and hey, it is the opposite of a Land Rover Defender. So simple, but noisy and, well, about thirsty, about the same. And I don't think the 2.8 is going to be better on fuel than the V8. I think it's going to be slightly better on fuel, but not a massive amount. I don't believe it's going to be a massive amount. I think it's going to be a token saving. At most, a litre per 100 kilometres. At most. That's my guess. So, a bit of a saving. Nice. A little bit of extra range. Nice. Probably 2 litres per 100 k's on the open road. Off-road in tracks, probably, my guess is about the same. I don't see any difference. Because that's what I think. At least the 70s isn't a Ford Bronco with Toyota grill on it. They are reliable cars. Toyota make reliable cars, and we like reliable cars for overlanding. And for very remote overlanding, it's really important. But see, the other part about the Troopy is that it's solid axles, which gives you a sense of you're not going to break it. On my solo trip, episode 1, episode 2 comes out on Wednesday. I hit these corrugations were bad. It was only for about 20 Ks, but they were probably the worst I've ever come across. And well, what do you do because you get to a speed and you try and ride them? What do you do when you cannot get to the speed to ride them? The speed was too fast. So I'm in four-wheel drive to give me stability, and I'm 60, I'm 70, and I still are not planing on the top of them. and the car is being shaken to pieces. I mean, really bad. And it's cringe time. Solid axles. My, they're wonderful. You have a sense of, I'm not going to break anything here. I actually had a minor problem with my back springs after that. I sorted it right there on the track. It was very easy for me to sort. It was just basically that they'd started, one of the brackets had come off that stops the springs from doing this, and one of them had come, in fact both of them had come off, and the springs had started to spring like this. And so I fixed it at my campsite. It took me an hour, not even that, half an hour, and sorted it. So, because I could. Simple. I could fix it. On my own, in the middle of nowhere, looked at it. Not, oh crikey, what am I going to do now? It was, okay, well, I think I'll do that before I have my shower. Okay. So, and that's the sense that Troopy gives. It's a very nice sense of security. To me, it's important. It just makes the travelling much nicer. I would have been happy if they had bought a straight 6 as an option to the V8. Yeah, sure. I don't disagree with that. Will the alternator have the same output? I have absolutely no idea at all. I don't know. It'll have the same output as the 2.8 Hilux. My guess is, which I don't know what that alternator output is. Nice if it was a bit higher. I agree with you. It would be nice if it was higher. You know, Jose, I'm just talking about the new 70 series as we speak. So I will be the guinea pig and get a 2.8 auto gearbox. Now, what I like about the auto gearbox is this. Let's first go back to the Africa Land Cruiser. Africa Land Cruiser, that 1HZ motor, fantastic for overland trip, so reliable. Unbelievably reliable and very common engine. You get parts for it anywhere in Africa. Incredibly common engine. It's all the NGUs want that engine because it's bulletproof, very, very reliable. It is not good in sand. Well, I've driven in very, very thick sand with that vehicle, and the engine then uses a huge amount of fuel in thick sand tracks where you are in first gear, second, and occasionally you might get into third. You know what I'm talking about. Grinding Kalahari sand tracks, the fuel consumption off the charts because the engine has no excess power. So your fuel consumption goes very, very high, where the V8 with that kind of configuration, fuel consumption does go up, but not nearly to the same amount because you have all that excess power. On sand dunes, I remember once I had my very first Land Cruiser was a 1HZ, and I remember it was a double cab conversion of a single cab. Then double cab Land Cruisers didn't exist, and there was a whole lot of dunes, and I was invited to a day. There were about 5 or 6 vehicles, and nobody could get to the top of the dune. Nobody. And then a guy in a Land Cruiser 80 with the multi-valve. Zip, straight up. There were Pajeros, there were L200 Mitsubishis, there was various vehicles, various pickups. There was a Hilux, can't remember the details of that. And I got to the top. I was the second vehicle to get up to the top. And the only reason why I got up to the top is because I'm a good driver. I knew how to drive it. I knew how to drive this thing, and I struggled, but I did get up to the top, and I really, really struggled. The Land Cruiser didn't struggle at all. The other guys eventually all got up because they were learning. They were learning how to drive off-road. So, difference between modern vehicle and old vehicle. With the old vehicles, standard vehicles, be a good driver. Learn how to be a good driver because you've got no traction systems that are going to help you. Right? None. Learn how to drive well. And then they're much better off-road because you become a better driver. Modern four-wheel drives with traction control make bad drivers look good. This is why I say, don't lock the differentials. Don't lock them. Unless you're making holes in the track and making it more difficult for other people, no, don't do that. But in order to learn, don't lock your axle diffs. Lock the center one. Lock the center one. Always lock the center one. Don't say, oh, look at me, I can do it in two-wheel drive. That doesn't interest me in the slightest. We're learning how to drive four-wheel drives. But locking the axle differentials, by not locking them, you'll learn your ability and the vehicle's ability. And then when you say, okay, I've learned a lot now, I'm now starting to dig holes. I'm not going to dig holes for other people. I'll lock the differential. And then continue learning the difference between locked and when to, because people lock the differential. The moment they say, oh, look, it looks gnarly, I'll lock the diff. Well, sometimes in thick sand, for example, on a beach, turning sharply on a beach, don't have the diff locked. It'll stop you turning. It'll dig you in. It'll literally dig you in. So by unlocking, unlocking, and unlocking, 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 you learn when and how, what happens, and you learn. The 2.8 in similar situation will be the same. It will have to work a lot harder in those sand. There's no ways this 2.8 is going to be as good on sand dune as my V8. It's not. How can it be? So I am trading off-road ability for the convenience of an automatic gearbox. That's what I'm doing. What is the trade? I don't know yet. Questions, guys? Feel free to send me some questions, because I'm going to wrap this up quite soon. I've done everything on my that I said I was going to do, and so 10 minutes or so. Send me some questions, and then I'm going to wrap it up. What I did say that I wanted to do. Where's my mouse gone? Connection lost. What I did say that I wanted to do is to on these shows actually do commentaries on various trips that I do and on the four-wheel drive scene in general. There's been a question now. There was a guy, Rob Parsons, who was penalized for filming his YouTube videos in state parks without paying a fee for a commercial production. Define commercial production. So I'm going to do a story about that. Is taking a picture for your Instagram commercial? No. But if you earn money from your Instagram? Yes. So how do you discern? How much money? 1 cent. The moment what is commercial? You know, influencers have this other thing in that they contribute. They inspire people to go to places. And those places reap the rewards because they have more visitors, and then it boosts their tourism trade. And those very places that are advantaged by the influencers visiting their place, then are saying, well, you need to pay. Now, are they saying, do you need to pay because we want more money from you, or do you want to pay because we want to control you? Now, the Rob Parsons story is an interesting one because he did do something wrong, which he's been very magnanimous about it, and he's admitted it and everything. And it's an interesting story because now somebody else has gone, an influencer's gone to Tasmania to get permits, and they said it was a nightmare getting permits. So, do you want people to send? So I have to ask the question. Do you want people to go to your national parks, yes or no? I'm assuming the word is yes. How do they know and find out if the national parks exist or are worth visiting? I'll tell you what they do. They don't watch television programs. They might read the occasional magazine and magazine article. What do? They watch influencers on YouTube. So why are you making it difficult for influencers on YouTube to tell people about your product? I'm going to get to the bottom of this. Fabulous Off-Road Designs are saying the 2.8 Auto will be better than the V8 manual in sand. I disagree with you completely. For people who do not know how to drive in sand, yes, you're right. For people that do understand and know how to drive in sand, no, it won't. And we can have an argument about that. It's not going to be as good. But if you don't know how to drive, sure, it'll be just and go. with a manual, and if you have to change gear halfway up a dune with a manual, you can do that. You can do it badly and you stop instantly, or you can do it well and not stop instantly. And if you time it just right, it'll be better. Good comment, though. I appreciate the comment, even though I disagree. Any updates you on Ineos? Yes, I actually messaged the guy, the CEO of Ineos in Australia, and I said, any news on a vehicle for me I'm planning for next year? He said, unfortunately, we're not being able to supply any press vehicles in Australia at this point, and invited me to a press event in Melbourne. And it kind of felt a little bit conditional on me going to the press event. So at this moment, I still want to get one and do a trip. But as you earlier in the show, I mentioned all my trips for 2024. So when am I going to fit in something with the Grenadier? You know, I have to plan ahead. So maybe in July next year, it's almost a year, we'll do something Grenadier, but I would far prefer to do something before then. But I don't know. Ineos don't like me. They're not happy with me. Far too honest for them. And I've spoken to some people that own Ineos, and I'm getting very mixed reports. I didn't expect anything else. You know, there are some common issues that they've come up with, and some common likes that they've come up with. And what worries me really is that any motoring manufacturer, Ineos is not unique in this regard. They will want positive stuff, and they will not handle negative stuff at all well. Not at all. And that's what motoring manufacturers are like. So I'm not seeing that this is going to be any different to them. Okay. Grant Pratt has asked a fantastic question. Skinny tires or wide tires? Do you want me to talk about that? I have quite a strong opinion about skinny tires. And it's contrary to many people who will, and a lot of people will disagree with me fundamentally, but this is on sand. Wide tires are not better than skinny tires. It is a misconception, and it is probably the most common misconception in four-wheel driving. It's not about the tire's width. It is about the tire's diameter, the overall diameter of the tire. And the reason is very simple. When you let down a tire, reduce the tire pressure, the tire does not get wider to give you extra flotation. It gets longer. The tread gets longer. So the tread, now supporting the car's weight, there's more tread on the ground, therefore the pounds per square inch pressure on the ground is reduced because it's over a wider area. So you might say, yes, but if you make the tires wider, it's a wider area. It's a bigger area. Yes, it is. But for one very, very important significant factor. The wider the tire, the higher the rolling resistance on soft ground. All right, so there's a factor there. The wider the tire, the harder it is to push it. Now, if you've noticed a tire on sand, it builds a little ridge in front of it, doesn't it? That's the thing. The narrower and smaller that ridge, the lower the rolling resistance. So make a tire big in diameter, but keep it narrow. To a point where there is a point where it's too narrow. Yes, there is. The best size for an off-road vehicle, for an average off-road vehicle, by far, is a tire size that very few tire manufacturers make, and it's a huge frustration for me because my chosen brand of tire don't make it. They do in the United States, but they don't in Australia, and they won't in Australia, and that is a 255 85. Please, tire makers, make a tire that's 285 75 is too wide. You've got the diameter right because in most vehicles that diameter will fit inside the wheel well and not foul the steering, etc. So a lot of four-wheel drives can handle a tire that is that diameter, 33 inches. Okay, you want 33 if possible. My troop carrier's got 31.7. It's too small. But the only way I can get to 33 is to go to a 285/75. It's too wide. So, as a compromise, what do? I'm going for the less wide tire. I'm going for the slightly smaller tire. And you might say, well, maybe it's better having a bigger tire and putting up with the width. Yes, but with the troop carrier, with the correction on the axle on the 285/75s, they touch the edge of the bodywork on full axle articulation at the back. And I've had them on my green troop carrier. Was it easier to drive in sand than the 265/75? Yes, it was, because it was bigger, not because it was wider. So the ideal is 33, but making 33 inches, but keep them the width of the 265/75. Perfect, absolutely perfect. In sand and gnarly stuff. So gnarly stuff where you have very, very slippery ground over rocks and things like this, tire width, a tire, again, the wider tire there is actually going to help you a little bit, because you're going to have more grip, because you're going to have a more surface, because the wider tire in that situation isn't hampering your, it doesn't increase rolling resistance. It does by a small amount. It does, but by a small amount. In soft ground, the softer it is, by a higher amount. So again, the wire over gnarly stuff, tall tire is better. The ratio of the size of the lump with the size of the tire, if the ratio is smaller, the lump is smaller. It's the lump that over which the wheel has climbed is smaller. It's a smaller ratio. So the bigger wheel, the better. It's about side diameter, not width. And that's my thing on skinny word tires. Yes. So he runs Fabulous Off-Road Designs, runs 255 85 17s. Okay. So a lot of I've got 16-inch rims. I want to stay with 16-inch rims because, again, it's when I let them down, I want to be able to have a nice soft flat. And the bigger the rim, the less the ratio is. 17 is as wide as you dare go, I think. 16 is better. So there's no, to me, the perfect 16-inch rim, 255 85. That to me is the optimum size if you're going for a 33-inch-ish, that kind of size. Once you go 35s, most cars can't carry 35s because the wheel arches aren't big enough. And so, right. From Romania, thank you for all of your kind comments, guys. I'm going to wrap this up. Lots of people telling how much they love their Land Cruisers. Okay. World peace. I wish every man was as smart as you, and I wish we had world peace. Fun. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up, guys. Thank you so much for watching. It's an hour and a half. That's about what I was hoping it would be. Thank you very much for watching. How many people we've got? We've had about 220 people, concurrent viewers. They kind of stayed static during the whole thing. I really enjoy these chats. I enjoy these live shows. Trying to do every third month, third Sunday of every month. And to wrap up, remember the course, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective Overlanders on overland-workshop.com. It's a free course. I've extended it. It was going to be, that free offer was going to end on the 12th. It's now going to end this Wednesday. So go there, go and grab the course. I've also, for those of you who have Overland Workshop subscriptions, updated the course on choosing your four-wheel drive. Added 6 new videos speaking about performance vehicles, large vehicles, small vehicles, old vehicles, new vehicles. It's not brand specific at all. I'm not there to put down any brand or lift up any brand of my particular persuasion. This is vehicle types. So you can then take your favorite brand and say, what vehicle would work for me in their stable? and it'll work for my overlanding needs. So that's the Overland Workshop as well. It is available, that course is available for separate purchase as well. Or just get a subscription and you buy it for a year, subscription for a year, and any additional courses during that year are free to you. And we're now drawing up plans for courses for next year, 24. We've got 2 courses next year. One of them I know exactly what we're going to do. The other one is kind of in the air at the moment. We've got some ideas. But we basically do 2 brand new courses added to Overland Workshop every year. So, any more questions, guys? Wrap it up now. Any more questions? Thanks. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Nathan. Thank you, Lyndon. Thank you, Graham. Enjoy your day, Andrew. I'm going to now have my birthday lunch with my family here in Western Australia, in Perth, Northwest Australia. The sun is shining, the birds are singing, and I wish you a very good day. Bye for now.